So welcome to today's live webinar, Keyboard and Mouse Basics. My name is Rebecca Van Dusen. I am a library associate at the Champaign Public Library. If you've attended any tech workshops in person, you've probably seen me assisting with those. I will also occasionally teach a class, and I also work at the information desk. Before I introduce our technology librarian, Susan Winkler, I'd like to mention some library info. We are open to the public for normal hours. We are still offering curbside services though, if you don't want to come in to pick up your holds. And of course, you can always call us, email us, or chat with us if you have any questions. Our email is librarian@champaign.org, or you can email help@champaign.org. Help@librarian is not the right one. We are still offering a book a librarian service. So if you wanted to work with a staff member one-on-one, you can request a session. Let me write that in the chat. The link is champaign.org/book-a-librarian. So if you go to that link, you'll fill out the form, write in what you wanted to learn from us, and then we would give you a call to set up. We can correspond with you over email, or we can even meet over Zoom if you're comfortable with that. And then let's also go over some Zoom features. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a raise hand option, and you'll also see a chat option. So if you click on the chat, you can actually type in the chat and we'll receive anything and we can answer questions that way. And we're also going to unmute everyone as well. So while Susan's doing her demonstration and throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute your mic and speak your question. So we're trying to make it more conversational that way. Please feel free to ask questions, interrupt us, whatever. We really don't mind as long as it gets you on your way to answering a question. I think that's all I have from me. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Susan. How are you today?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good.
Good. And I hope everybody is also doing well who's attending today. So what we've got today is we're going to be covering keyboard and mouse and keyboard, sort of the basic keyboard and mouse setup and skills that you can learn. And hopefully you made it here today, so I'm happy to see you all in the virtual environment. This is, as I was saying just before we started recording, this is our first time trying this in the digital environment, in the virtual realm. So we're glad that you're here and that you've made it. I do have kind of a set agenda that we'll start with, but again, if you have questions or you want me to demo something again, feel free to stop me. Just go ahead and chime on in because I want everybody to get the most out of this that they can. And in our regular in-person sessions, we would make time for that and people could raise their hands or, verbally just let me know that they have a question or that they want something repeated. So we're going to try to do that today as well. Okay. All right. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to share our PowerPoint for today. If you've attended any of our workshops in the past, we do have a PowerPoint that we kind of run off of. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up from the beginning. Okay, so today is mouse and keyboard basics. And there's my contact information there. I'll also share that with you later. And then Rebecca can also put that in the chat for you too. So today what we're going to cover, we're going to cover the mouse. We're going to cover the pieces of the mouse. And we're going to cover different kinds of mouse skills like hovering over something. We're going to cover right click, left click, double click, scroll wheel, all those things. And then we'll briefly we'll do a mouse tutorial together. And I'll show you how to get to that. And then we'll kind of run through it. And then we'll move on to the keyboard. And we'll talk about home row typing. And then I will tell you about a couple of the special features and special keys. And then I'll show you where there's a tutorial that you can use to practice. The biggest thing with mouse and keyboard skills is practice, practice, practice. There's a lot of, what I like to say is it's a lot of muscle memory. So it's a lot of getting used to placing your hand in the right position that's comfortable for you. And then learning how to extend your fingers and things like that, which we'll go over in a minute too. So, and then the more you practice, the faster you'll get and the more accurate you'll get with your typing. Okay. And then we'll, of course, have time for questions at the end as well. But again, feel free to stop me throughout. Okay. All right. So we'll start with how to hold the mouse. It doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed. Either way works. What that usually means, though, is that you'll have, if you're right-handed, you have the mouse to the right of the keyboard. If you're left-handed, you have it to the left of the keyboard. But again, it's up to you and what feels comfortable. But generally, to hold the mouse, you'll want to put your thumb on the outside of the left, and then use your index finger on the left button, and then middle finger on the right button, and then let your pinky and your ring finger kind of hang out on the other side. And that's generally how most people will hold it. And I'm going to show a live demo here in just a second of that as well. But I also want to, before I do that, I want to show you the parts of the mouse. So generally the parts of the mouse is pretty simple. You have a left button, a right button, and a scroll wheel or click wheel. It's kind of funny to call it a click wheel because it doesn't actually make a clicking sound, but you can, if you have one of them that does, you can click on it, and that's how it became called the click wheel. So what we mean by click is basically just pressing down. So pressing on the left button, pressing on the right button, or pressing on the wheel in the middle. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing real quick and jump to our Elmo camera, which looks like this. So this is our live camera view where you guys can see how I'm holding my mouse here too. And I kind of put this down since the mouse today is black and the desk area here is also black. So I've kind of put a cardboard piece down here just so you can see it. If you had a mouse pad, this would be the purpose of a mouse pad too, to help move the ball of the mouse along. So if you can see on the back side, what you have, and I don't want to blind anybody with lasers or anything, but right here is the way that you're guiding your mouse is through this optical laser right there. So when I'm doing this and putting my hand down, and I want to put it flat against the table so that my wrist is supported, and then I can just move right or left. And what I'm seeing on my screen right now that you're not seeing is my mouse is going, to the left if I'm going to the left, and to the right if I'm going to the right. And we'll show that more in a live demo in a second too. But if you see, I have my thumb on the side, mouse, click here, click here, and then the ring finger and the pinky over here. Now in the middle there, if you can see it, this is the click wheel. So as I start to advance the PowerPoint, if I wanted to, I could use this click wheel or scroll to go all the way through and advance the slides. And I'll show you how that works live in person in a second. But in general, this is how most people will hold the mouse. If you have arthritis or other issues, you can modify this based on whatever is most comfortable for you. But this is generally the general way they suggest people go ahead and hold the mouse. Okay. Any questions about how to hold the mouse before I switch back? No? Okay. Okay, if you do, just let us know again. All right, now come back to.
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat, but
okay.
If anybody has one, feel free to talk in any time.
Yes,
everybody's unmuted.
Yes, feel free to ask questions throughout. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. So we've gotten our parts of the mouse. And the next thing I want to show is what we call the cursor symbols. So the cursor is generally your arrow. So this little arrow that you see on my screen here, it's kind of hard to see it because it's so tiny. But if I kind of move it, I'm going to move it in front of the big white arrow here that says normal. And you see the little black one, that's our cursor, right? And I've made the cursor on my computer a lot bigger, but you can't see it in Zoom unless I show it through the live action camera. So I'm going to do that in a few minutes too and show you what all these different symbols look like. But normal would be basically your click here, click there, click here, click there. When you click on something and the computer has to think about it, it's the busy is this little looks like the little sands of time, that you can switch. So that's just telling you that the computer is thinking, it's processing, it's busy. So when you see that, you want to make sure you wait a few seconds before you try to do something else, because you can confuse the brain of a computer by putting too many, giving it too many instructions too quickly. So that's what busy means. Link is when you're on a website or in a document that has something called a hyperlink, which basically means it's something that allows you to go out to the internet and get more information from out there, and it'll look like a hand. Resizing, on a computer, when you open something, you come up to, you have a little window or a box. And when you want to resize that box and make it bigger or resize it and make it smaller, you use your mouse to do that with the cursor. And I'll demo that in just a second too. And so when you do that, the mouse turns into basically a two arrow facing the opposite direction. When you want to put in text, that's when you get the one that we call it a cursor as well, and it looks kind of like an eye. And that would be, if you were typing in like a website address or typing a document in Microsoft Word or anything like that. So it's basically whenever you want to do text. Move, where it looks like the four-pointed here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my mouse going over it too, but this move is whenever you want to move something in like PowerPoint or another program, you can hold down the left mouse button and then move something, like move an element on the page. And I'll show you that in a minute too. Okay, any questions about that so far? Now's a good time to ask if you have any questions. No, nothing so far? Okay.
None so far.
Okay, so then we have the type of things that we can do with our mouse. So a left click, if someone asks you to click on something or they say left click. So if I said, click on this, usually that's gonna be a left click. Or if I say, oh, go ahead and left click on that. The left click is usually required when you want to select something within a program, a document, or a file. And you're trying to get basically from point A to point B. So you're getting from one thing to another thing in a document. So it helps with navigation, jumping back and forward in your document, and getting from place to place. And we'll show that in a second too. The right click is usually when you want to bring up, I like to think of it as bringing up more options for tasks and functions. So if you don't see what you want after you've left clicked something, if you right click, you're going to see more options. So for example, this drawing here, right here, is of the desktop on a computer, and I'm going to demo this in just a second as well. But what we did was we right clicked on the desktop, and then we get these other options of things that we could do after having done a right click. Okay. The double click is probably the most important thing, because double click is usually what lets you open a program. And I will show you a quick way to do it without using the double click too, but it's good to practice the double click if you can. What I like to do is I think of it as click click or tap tap, because that's kind of the cadence that I do it with. But it's tapping twice kind of quickly. So that's why I say tap, tap out loud, and it's kind of the sound it makes to me. And that is used primarily to open programs, okay? The scroll, actually I'm using the scroll right now to advance the slides. The scroll or click wheel, which is that button, that click wheel in the middle, can be used to move quickly up and down through a document or a website. So the scroll is essentially what happens when you actively move down or up a website page, or in a document like a Word document, or a PowerPoint like what we're doing here. Okay, and I'm going to go over these in more detail in just a second, and we're going to demo each one live. Okay, so the drag and drop, this one is probably the most frustrating at first because it does take practice, and your accuracy can be kind of important. But it's basically moving an icon or an object or file from one place on your computer. So if you have a file up here, and let's say there's a folder here and you want to move it there, you're going to left click and hold the left mouse button down, and then move your mouse physically to where you want it, and then let go. And what that'll do is it'll put that file in that folder, or it'll move whatever you want to the different place on the desktop. So I recommend practicing these moves. And we're going to demo them live in just a second. I have one other one I want to talk about, and that's the hover. And the hover is what happens when you place your cursor over the top of something on a computer, but you don't actually click it. And it'll pop up with either a description of what that button or icon does, or in the case of a website, it might change the shape or the colors of what you're looking at. So it's a way to tell basically what you're on top of, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do a live demo, and then we'll take a chance for questions here, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm actually going to switch my camera view to my Elmo here. And I'm going to pull that down. And I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint here as well so you all can see my desktop screen in just a second. All right, so I'm going to just kind of do this real quick. All right, can everyone see that? How's that look? Does it look okay? Try the autofocus. Does it
looks okay.
look bright enough? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cover everything we just talked about, but I'm going to do it in a live demo for us, okay? So the mouse and cursor symbols, if you can see my mouse here, I've made it a little bit bigger, so hopefully it's a little easier to see on the screen. That's this black arrow right here. This is normal. If I want to show you a link, I can come down here to the computer and I can show you. Do you see how if I tap, I go over visit, it turns into a hand? Or if I go over here, it turns into a hand? That is going to give me a link. So if I come down here a little bit further on the bottom of the page, this get that job is actually a link. So if I left click on it, it's actually going to take me to the career services page on the library's website. Then I can come back up here to the top left corner, click once, and it'll take me back. Okay. So that's what a link looks like. So if you see that hand, that automatically means that you're going to link to something else. Okay. So I want to show you resize too. I'm going to come up here in the top right corner and I'm going to make my screen a little bit smaller. So you see how now I have some blue on the outside of this. If I want to make it smaller, I can drag it down and to the right. And you see how now it's in those two arrows? There's an arrow going to the going up and to the left and down and to the right. That's going to make it smaller. And then if I go up and to the left, it's going to make it bigger again. That's called resizing. Okay. If I want to move the whole thing, I can just move it like this. So in the case of website windows, it doesn't actually, it's not the same as the move that you would get in, say, a PowerPoint, but I'll show you that in just a second. Then I want to show you text. So if I hover over here, do you see how that turned into the big I? And then I can actually type something in here like champaign.org, which will take us to our website. Okay. And it switched to our mobile version of our site because I made it small enough. Okay. So just like that. Okay. Any questions about those? If you want to see the move, if I come to our PowerPoint, you see how now it looks like the four arrows. And if I tapped there, now I could move this. So that's the move and what the move function does. Okay. Okay, any questions so far? Anybody still with us? Okay. So
no questions so far.
Okay, so like I said, the left click usually just takes you, one place. So for example, if I'm in, let's open a document. So I'm going to open this Word document here. Now to open it, I'm going to use tap, my double click to get in here for this sample document. Okay, I'm going to move that just a little bit further over so you can see to the end of it. Okay, wish it was a little bit more straighter. Hold on one second. Let me make it a little straighter on. There we go. Okay, so if I want to click once in here, I'm just going to click once there. Say I want to come between sample here. I'm just going to tap. You see how that cursor is following where I'm tapping? This is one click to get my navigation. Okay. Now if I right click on here, right click, do you see how that brings up a whole bunch of other things I could do and other options? That's generally what we get when we do a right click. So if I was to do that here and right click, this is the same thing that you saw where you get other things you could do. Like I could hit new and add a folder. I could add a shortcut. I could undo something. I could rename something. I could view something, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's the right click. Okay, and we saw the double click just a second ago, but if I wanted to double click to open something, like say I want to open Google Chrome again, I'm going to go tap on the mouse and open it. Now the shortcut for those of you that find it really hard to do the double click, and trust me, it does take a while to learn how to do a double click, and it can be very frustrating at first. So if you're struggling with that, the other way you can open programs is to tap once to select it. And you see how when I say selected, I mean that there's now that little blue box around it. That means that it's selected. Once I've selected it, I can right click. Remember, right clicking gives us more options. And then you'll see, look, open. So that's my other option I can do. So then I can left click on open, and that will open it for me. Okay. And this is going to open in full screen. So, oops. Hello, Firefox. I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to close it down here by right clicking. Again, I'm right clicking, so I'm getting more options here, and hit close window. Okay, and that'll get rid of the Firefox for us. Okay, I do want to show you the scroll. So if I jump back to the website up here, and see this now is not our full website, right? This is just the beginning of the Champaign Public Library page. If I see over here, there's a little thing called a scroll bar, and this is where that term comes from for the mouse, for scroll. The scroll wheel or click wheel comes from the fact that this is called the scroll bar. Let me move this guy out of the way here. So it's kind of meta, right? Because you can see what I'm seeing right there. But here's the scroll. And if I hold down the left mouse button on this bar, I can scroll down our website like that. But if I don't want to have to hold down my left mouse button, all I have to do is basically click on it. Oops, sorry. So I just click to make sure I've selected the website, and then now I'm using my scroll or click wheel on the computer to make this happen. Okay, so if I move the camera back like this, you can see what I'm doing here is my scroll wheel like this, and now I'm going back up this page. Oh, sorry, show you my ring light there. Okay, just like that. Okay, so that's the scroll. Now for dragging and dropping, I actually created a folder here. So I'm gonna do what's called minimizing. I'm gonna hit this little minus sign up here, again with a left click. And then to drag and drop, I'm gonna take my sample here. Okay, so I've clicked once to select it. See how now it's got that box around it? Now I'm gonna hold down the left mouse button, and I'm gonna drag it and drop it on top of this folder. Now notice, when I take it from here, when I get to where I want to put it, do you see how there's that box, that selected box comes up? That's how I know I'm going to drop it in the right place. So right now I still have my finger on the left mouse button, but when I let go, it moves. Oops, well, I can't move it because it's actually open. So let me close out of that first. Okay, so since we were actually in the document, the computer was like, I can't move this because you're using it right now. So anyway, what I'm going to do, okay, I'm holding down the left mouse button. Got it up there, dropping it there. Okay, now if I double click to open the folder, tap, tap, I can see my sample document is in that folder. Okay, so that's the drag and drop. Okay, and we'll get to practice that too. If you play solitaire at all on a computer, that's a great way to learn how to do drag and drop and practice it because it actually will let you move the cards over. And then you have to hold down your mouse button, move it over, and then drop it on top of the other cards. So if you want to practice that, I recommend playing solitaire. Okay, and then for the hover, I'm going to come back to the website here for the hover. Okay, now when I hover over visit, do you see how it turns a different color? It turns black, and e-library turns black, business turns black, adults, teens, kids, events. That's called a rollover, but that means when I hover on it, something happens. I'm not actually clicking, I'm just hovering the mouse over the top of it. If you want to see what this looks like in Microsoft Word, again, I'm double clicking to open this. And then if I hover over the B here, see how it pops up with some information down there? Tells me that this will make my text bold. And then it gives me what's known as the keyboard shortcut to get to that. Okay, so if I'm hovering over the top of it, if I don't know what any of these things do, if I hover over it, Microsoft Word will tell me what it does. Okay, any questions so far about any of that?
None so far.
Okay, so I want to show you the mouse tutorial that I like to recommend in our workshops in class. And we actually, in the in-person workshop, we actually go to this mouse tutorial and we practice as a group. But I want to show it to you. So what you want to do to get to it is you're going to pick one of your browsers, and the browsers are the things you use to get out to the internet. So if on your computer you have Microsoft Edge, which looks kind of like this wave swirl here, or Google Chrome, which I think looks a little bit like the game Simon Says, if you've ever played Simon Says, and then Firefox, which looks like a little fox around a world or a globe. And then if you're on a Mac, you might have Safari, which looks a little bit like a compass. Or you might have Internet Explorer, which looks like a giant E. Those are all browsers, and we use those to get out to the internet. And this tutorial actually does live on the internet. And again, like I said too, you can always come into the library and our staff can help navigate to this tutorial for you to help you practice too. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Google Chrome. I'm gonna double click, so tap, tap, and open Google Chrome. Then from here, if you see, I now have up here at the top, and I'm going to show you this in a second, the Space Invaders game. It's really fun. But I'm going to this cursor here up at the very top, this address bar. This means I can type something in there. And I'm going to go to gcflearnfree.org. And then I'm going to hit the Enter key on the keyboard. And that's going to take me to this specific website. I'm also going to increase the size so you guys can see a little better. Okay. Then I'm going to come down. Now, here's where I'm using my scroll bar and my scroll wheel. So if you see, I'm not actually over here pulling this like this, but and I'm using my mouse, my click wheel, scroll wheel to scroll down to technology. Then I'm going to tap on technology, and I'm going to click once with the left mouse to get to technology. And then we're going to hope it actually opens like it's supposed to. It did a minute ago. Come on. So if you see up here where it's spinning in the corner, oh, you can't see that. Okay, well, it's spinning over here in the corner. And that's because it's taking a second to get there. Let's see, come on. Come on, friend. I'll jump out of the typing game. Come on. Just tested this and it worked. There we go. Okay, so here we are at the technology page. Then I'm going to scroll down to where it says computers. And this is all in the PowerPoint for today. And if you want, we can send you all the PowerPoint too, so you know how to get to this again, and you don't have to take notes or anything. But I'm going to come down to computers and where it says mouse tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and click on the mouse tutorial. And then I'm going to click where it says interactive tutorial. And then here's a mouse tutorial that can help you practice your mouse skills, okay? So here's basically what we just went over. The scroll wheel in the middle, the left click or left button, the right click, right button, and then the body of the mouse, right? Okay, so then here's how to hold it, just like what we just went over. Okay, the palm cups it at the end and should be on the mouse pad or the desktop, okay? So then we're ready to use the mouse. We're going to start off with clicking. So we're going to use the left mouse button, and we're going to click right here where it says click me. Whee! Okay, and it says great job. Okay, here's the rollover effect, or the hover, right? So we hover the cursor over the icons below to see some different rollover effects. Okay, so when I hover over here, see how it changes color? Here it moves, and here changes color and spreads apart. Okay. Double clicking, again, this is great way to practice double clicking. So you're gonna hit tap, tap to open the folder, tap, tap to open that folder, and then you get the file here and you double click, and then it's reset the activity so you can try again, and you can tap, tap, okay? And then you double click on the file to move on to the next section, okay? Perfect. Okay. Now the drag and drop, which is also, I think, one of the more difficult things to learn how to do, again, because you have to have all that accuracy. So this is going to help you practice your drag and drop skills. So we get to build a little robot. So we're going to move into position here. And we'll just place them, you got to place them right on top of the dotted outline here, like this. We'll give him his head and his body. You see how I placed it here first, and it didn't change colors because I'm not quite over that dotted line. There we go. Okay, now we've assembled the robot. Okay, and the main reason you for dragging and dropping is that you can then organize files into folders, and you can move things around on the computer. And in our file storage and organization class in a couple weeks, we'll practice this again too, when we name something and we move things into it. But it's a good idea to try to practice this, and so we can move, you know, since it's labeled trash, we're gonna move it to the recycle bin. So again, I'm holding down the left mouse button, and then I'm just dragging it in the direction I want it to go so that it's over the recycle bin and then let go. And then, you know, I might accidentally do this and go, oops, you know, I didn't mean to put that there. That's supposed to go into music. Then you got to put it in there instead. And if I'm not quite, and if you see how I'm not quite on top of it, it doesn't actually go into the folder unless I'm right on top of it. Okay, and then document goes into documents, like that. Any questions about that? Or questions so far? No?
I think
Okay.
we're good. I also
Okay.
put a link to the mouse
Perfect.
tutorial in the chat. So
Great, thank you. Thank you for
Yep.
doing that, yeah. And we'll do the same thing for the typing tutorial here in a second. So that is one of the tutorials that you can use to practice. And again, like I said, solitaire is another one. If you play online solitaire using the computer, it gives you a lot of work for the drag and drop and everything. Yeah, so if there's no questions about that, we'll go ahead and move on to talking about the keyboard. Okay, I'll give a second in case anybody has questions. And we'll talk about keyboards. No? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and jump back in here. I'm gonna put that back down and then come back in here. Oh, sorry about that. I gotta move it like that. Give you kind of a weird matrix feeling there. Very meta. Okay. All right. Let me move my mouse over a little bit. Get situated here a little bit. Okay. Now I'm gonna move this up so it gives you a good view of the whole keyboard without too much of a crazy look to it. Okay, we'll move the mouse out of the way here. Alrighty. So here's our keyboard. I'm gonna autofocus a little bit. Hopefully that'll help us out. Yep, okay. Any questions so far? No? No? Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way too so we can see it a little better.
We're good.
Okay, so the parts of our keyboard. Now this is a full-sized keyboard that you would normally have with, say, a desktop computer, or you can normally hook one of these up to a laptop if you want more space between your keys. Sometimes if you have a laptop, you've probably noticed that everything's kind of smooshed a little bit more. That's the real technical term for it, is smooshed a little bit more to make the laptop smaller, so it's got less, it takes up less real estate basically. And I'll show you a laptop screen in a minute here too, or keyboard rather. So, but if you notice your general setup here, you have your number keys along here. You've got your function keys up here. That's why all the keys that start with the F up here, those are known as function keys. And they do very specific functions depending on when you press them. And then we have our navigation keys, which are over here, like the arrows here, and also end and page up and page down and home. These are all navigation keys, okay? And then you have your numeric keypad over here. So if you know anyone who does a lot of data entry, oftentimes you'll see that they're not gonna use these keys over here. They're gonna use this numeric keypad. You might even notice library staff do this when we type in library barcodes or the barcodes on different items. We'll use these over here because it's easier and faster to do it once you've learned how to type in there correctly. Okay, so those are the basic parts of the keyboard. Down here is, whoops, sorry about that, tapped my cord. Down here, it's basically your area where you're gonna do all your typing. Now, has anyone ever wondered when cell phones first came out and they were talking about how your cell phone might have a full QWERTY keyboard? If you remember hearing that term, the QWERTY keyboard just means it's a standard keyboard arranged like this, because if you see the Q, W, E, R, T, Y, QWERTY. So that's where that came from, if you ever wondered about that with cell phones and stuff. A standard keyboard basically looks like this. Now, if you know anybody who does gaming, they might have a slightly different keyboard. I've seen keyboards that are raised up and they're like so they're like almost like a hill, and have the keys on either side like this to make it easier for gamers to do what they do when they're playing their games, their online games and stuff. So you do have other kinds of keyboards out there, but the standard QWERTY keyboard looks pretty similar to this. Okay. A laptop keyboard, if you want to see, I have a laptop keyboard over here, so if you give me just a second, flip this around real quick, make everybody really dizzy, sorry about that. But this, and I'm gonna switch that too, is a laptop keyboard. So your laptop keyboard, you can see you still have pretty much everything you had there, but now you also have it in a much smaller space. So here's your number keys, you know, right here. Then you also have your numbers along here, and your function keys, and your QWERTY, and your typing keys here. Your directional keys are split between here and up here at the top, okay? And instead of having a mouse, you have what's known as a trackpad or a touchpad, which is this thing right here, which basically does the same functions as a mouse, okay? Okay, so bear with me here for just a second. I'm gonna try to take this as smoothly as possible back over here to our regular keyboard, so you guys can see how much bigger it is. Okay, and then let me put this up just a little bit higher. Or you can get my finger in there. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna raise it up just a little bit more so you can see the whole keyboard. Okay. And of course your keyboard, your full-size keyboard like this, you actually plug in separately. So here's our cord that comes from our keyboard. Now you might also see a wireless keyboard or a wireless mouse, which means they don't have cords, or a Bluetooth keyboard or Bluetooth mouse, which those are just other ways to connect that don't have the cords, okay? Excuse me. So the other keys we have here that I want to show, we have the Enter key and the Shift key. And those do important functions for, you know, like when we just did the website address and we hit enter, and then that let us go to the website we wanted to go to. And Shift allows you to do capital letters. So if I hit Shift and H, that'll give me a capital H on the letter keys. And you have the space bar down here. And I sometimes make a joke in our in-person tech classes about a space bar and what that might actually look like, and how they might serve drinks in, you know, like Cassiopeia and the stars and stuff. But your space bar on a computer is a slightly different purpose. Basically, it's putting a space between what you're typing. So, and then we have backspace, which goes back. Will let you delete going to the left. And we have the delete key, which actually will delete whatever's next to it to the right. And then we have our arrow keys, which let you navigate within a document. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this using our sample document. So I'm going to minimize the screen here and pull up this again. Okay, so hopefully, whoops, sorry, I need to send you up to the ring light there. The ring light is just gives a little more light to the person who's doing the presentation. So that's what you were seeing there for a minute. Okay, I'm gonna come over just a little bit more so you can see the full document. Okay, so since it says this is a sample document, and I'm gonna show you what I'm doing here. So if I wanna use the number keys and put some numbers in here, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 0. And I'm just going right across the top there, okay? Navigation keys, if I wanna go back up, I can use the up arrow. I can use the down arrow to go down. I can go to the right with the right arrow, go to the left with the left arrow. And that's just calling out what I'm doing on the keyboard here while I'm doing it. Okay. If I do Shift and that capital H, gives me so Shift and the H key. And again, you have to hold down the Shift key the whole time. And while you're holding it down, then you can make those capital letters. Okay. And Enter allows you to go down to another line. So if I was to say this is a sample document in Microsoft Word, and it's automatically advancing down there. But I can also say, I want Microsoft to be on the second line too. If I hit Enter, it moves it down a line. So then it matches up there. What you did see there too, backspace takes it out. If I don't want it at all, then I can go up another line. If I want to delete something in the middle, so let's say I accidentally spelled like that, and I'm like, oops, that's not right. Then I can use my left arrow to go back in, find what I mistyped, and hit delete, and delete will delete to the right. So backspace goes to the left, and delete key goes to the right. Delete key does one key at a time, like this, okay? And backspace does one key at a time. But if you hold them down, you can very quickly accidentally delete more than you wanted. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And there, and space. If I want to put more spaces in here, I can use the space bar like that and move it over. Now there are a couple of special keys that can do the same the same function. So if I want to put a bunch of spaces in here, I can sit there and hit the space bar a whole bunch of times. Or I can use something called the tab key, which will give me an indent. So if I do tab, it indents me 5 spaces each time. So it's a little bit faster than hitting that space bar a whole bunch. Okay. Okay. And then if I want to get the Shift and all the capital letters, instead of holding down Shift the whole time, because that takes a lot of effort, you can hit Caps Lock, and the Caps Lock key will make it so everything is capital letters. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So the other thing I want to cover, I was going to talk about home row typing, which let me bring this down just a little bit more so you guys can see a little bit better. I'm going to jump out of that, back in here. So home row typing, the reason it's called home row is because if you notice, and if you're on a full-size keyboard right now, and you put your finger on the F key, and you put your finger on the J key, you'll notice they have these little, and I don't know what the technical official term for them are, but these little bars, these little raised lines here, that's to help you know with your sense of touch, the tactile, that is the F key and the J key. And the way home row typing works is that you put your index fingers on the F and the J. And once you do that, your other fingers just follow those keys. So the D and K, the S and L, the A, and then the colon, semicolon key, like that. And then your thumbs are on the space bar, or just outside, kind of resting down here. And this is called home row and home row typing. Okay. The reason is because whenever you type something, like if I was to type the word the, I would come up here to the T with this finger, then come back down here, go over here with to get the H, and come back to the J, and then come up here with the finger on the D, goes up to E to make the. But you notice they always return, my fingers always return to these keys. They return home to the home row. Okay. So that's basically one of the most often used methods for learning how to type is this home row idea. And if you've used a typewriter before, it's kind of the same idea as what folks did with the typewriters too. So it kind of just translated to computers and computer keyboards. So what I want to do now is show you a typing tutorial that can help you practice this home row because it does take practice. Again, a lot of computers, it takes practice, and then you get that muscle memory from doing all of the practicing with it. Now you do want to make sure you rest your, they have mouse rests, keyboard rests, where your wrists are a little higher if they're resting on it. But if you see what I'm doing now, I'm just resting them on the desktop here so that I'm not, like if you've ever learned to play piano, for piano, they always want, at least my piano teacher wanted me to have my wrists very high up like this to play the piano. And that can do a lot of strain on your wrists over time. So it's good to just rest them here. It's also good to, after you've practiced a little bit, go ahead and step away, do some finger exercises, give them a little bend, a little stretch, kind of clench your fingers and pull them out and like that. Because as you're learning it, it will take a while and you will want to do a little bit of stretching and take some breaks in between. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show you where that tutorial is. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go back to where the mouse tutorial was. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay, so this same website, the gcflearnfree.org, we're gonna go back to that again. So if I was to get, actually, let me do it from the home screen here. So if I was to do it, I would double click on Google Chrome or Firefox or Edge or whichever one you want. So let me stop sharing for just a second so I can show you that. I'll show you that with the screen here. So if I'm gonna try to get to it for the first time, I'll go to my browser. So I'll go to Google Chrome here. Okay, like that, make it bigger, come up to the top corner and type in gcflearnfree.org. Sorry, that's a little bit off the screen. There you go, like that. Get back to this page. So the same way we went to get to the mouse tutorial, gonna go to technology, scroll down with your scroll wheel, computers, and then we're gonna go to typing tutorial instead of mouse tutorial. So we're gonna go to typing tutorial like that, okay? All right, now I'm gonna actually share this with the camera because I want you guys to be able to hear what happens too. So give me just a moment and I'm gonna switch. Let's see, actually, I think I can leave it up to this. Yeah, we'll leave it on this. Okay, I'm gonna come back here to that. Oh, sorry, gonna get the metal look again. And I'm gonna switch my sharing my screen and I'm gonna share this one. Typing tutorial. Okay. Okay, so now here we are at the typing tutorial, and we're just going to click right here on the interactive course. Okay. And then you're going to see here, you can either learn how to do home row typing, or you can practice your home row typing. Okay. So if I want to learn, I'll click on learn, and then up here, click the start button. And then there's going to be a voice that's going to walk you through.
So you want to learn to type. Excellent. If you follow us and go through this course, giving it all you got, I'd say that you'll be up and typing pretty well in maybe a couple of weeks or so. Okay. It's really going to be up to you. Now, if you're thinking a couple of weeks, that's way too long, then you might want to rethink your expectations a bit, because learning to type takes time. Time to memorize the finger key positions, time to build up your muscle memory so you can then start to type fluidly without looking at the keyboard.
Okay.
People have been learning how to type.
Okay, so get the idea. Did everybody hear that? Could everyone hear that? Rebecca, were you able to hear
Yes.
that? Okay,
sorry,
thank you.
I was trying to unmute.
Okay.
It wasn't letting me.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you guys could all hear that. So it does take some time. It does take a while to get that muscle memory of what to do, when, where. Once you've gone through the learning of it, I recommend doing the practice as well, because when you hit the practice, you can practice your different letters and you can practice sentences and structures and things. So if I pick, for example, let's practice the F and J keys, because those are, remember, those are our keys that have those little, the little raised things for us here. And let's say I just want to do 2 practices, and I'll hit start. And then all I'm going to do is switch between JF, 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 JF like this. Okay.
Okay, now try typing this.
Okay. Then you would, and it's telling me, and if I mess up, it's going to turn the different colors. Okay. So.
Practicing is tough at times, but it's really where it all comes together.
Okay. So did everybody see that? Yes, I hope so.
Yes.
Okay.
And
okay.
the voice was going again still.
Perfect. Okay. So that's the practice for the typing tutorial too. So I do recommend doing that. I won't take too much of your time because I know we only have an hour here. So it'd take a little bit longer to go through, you know, to actually show you the whole home row experience and stuff. But I do encourage you to go and practice on these websites, because it will help for increasing your speed too and your accuracy. I want to show one other thing. If you want to try something that's a little bit more fun than just practicing, you know, like JF, 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 you can try things like Space Invaders typing game, and you can just Google that. And then the one I like is this Z-type, and this may be a little loud, so I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit just in case. But if I type new game, what it does is it sends letters. So once you get to the point where you're feeling pretty good about it, you can type in there like that, okay? And the more you practice, the more you'll be able to look away from the keys and look up at the screen. And if you can look up at the screen, that's even better. So then you're not just looking right at your keys here, but you can look up at your screen, okay? So, all right. Are there any questions about that?
So far.
Okay, I'm gonna jump back in here real quick, and I'm gonna jump back to the PowerPoint so I can show you the last couple of things that I have for today. So I'll stop my sharing, and I'll jump back to my screen. Hi again, everyone. Sorry about those little hiccups with moving the camera back and forth. I'm gonna go ahead and share the PowerPoint screen again. And, okay. Okay, so the rest of the PowerPoint, if you do want this again, I'm happy to share the PowerPoint with everyone too after class. I'm gonna jump into the current slide. So again, this is instructions on how to get to that mouse tutorial. So you double click on your browser of choice, and then you go to the address bar and you type that website in and hit enter and click on technology. And then you'll get to and then you look for, you know, you scroll down and get to computers and then mouse tutorial, okay? And then you click on it, okay? And then here's what we went over, the parts of the keyboard. Remember, you have your number keys, the function keys up above, navigation key, and the typing keys, and then the number keypad, okay? So the letter keys, remember we talked about QWERTY right here, and enter and shift, and those letter keys. And the space bar, and what the space bar does, backspace and delete, and the arrow keys and what they do. And then tab and caps lock. So tab was the one that indents you 5 spaces, and caps lock is the one that makes all the text capitalized. Okay, and then here's how to get to the typing tutorial that we just did. Okay, so you click on your browser, type in that address. Now, if you're already at that page because you already practiced the mouse tutorial, all you have to do is click on the typing tutorial. Okay, that's the typing tutorial. Okay, okay. And then I've got 2 additional resources for you too. These are 2 more type a mouse and a keyboard tutorial that you can also try. And these are the, Rebecca, do you want to copy these and put them in the chat as well?
Yes, I can do
you
that.
You can do that. This is from digitallearn.org, which is actually a library, an American Library Association sponsored, Public Library Association sponsored Digital Learn tutorials too. So, and those are also nice ones that you can practice with. And then I want to tell you about the upcoming webinars. So we have Intro to Windows Computers is going to be next week on the 15th. Rebecca will actually be teaching that one. I'll be hosting for her. That'll get you started with Windows 10 computers. We'll cover things like how to find where a program is, how to change some of your settings, things like that. Then organizing and storing files is on the 22nd. We'll talk a little bit about cloud storage and like naming conventions and things like that. And then on the 29th, we have Intro to the Internet. And we'll talk about different browsers and how to search and how to do some searching with like librarian tips and tricks in there a little bit. And that's all I have today. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, feedback? We're open to feedback. Excuse me. You can send that to me at swinkler@champaign.org, or again to the librarian or help. If you need more assistance with stuff, feel free to reach out. Again, we can do those book a librarians. We can either do those online or 15 minutes in person and help you out there. Here's some advertisements for that. We also have a live chat, and you can also use email if you want. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for if anyone has questions or would like to get more information or seek out specific help with something. That's what we're here for. Anyone? Okay.
Yeah, you can raise hand too if you're not able to unmute yourself.
Yes, yeah, and then we can actually help. We can help you that way too. So, but yeah, I do recommend practicing with those two tutorials for getting a little bit better with the mouse and keyboard skills. And I know it can be very frustrating at the beginning, especially drag and drop. Even now, I still sometimes will miss when I drag and drop stuff. One other thing you can do is you can actually make your cursor much bigger. So if you saw mine, when we were looking at my actual desktop screen, I made my cursor much bigger so that it was easier to see. The caveat with making it, or the tricky part with that is, if you make it bigger, then the accuracy is a little less. So when you click on something, you have less space to work in. So keep that in mind too if you decide to make it bigger. Okay. Anything else? Oh, we're good.
I also wanted to point out that when you were going over the mouse thing and you were talking about, like, if you want your wrist to get less strained, you can also actually buy mice that are good for like people that have carpal tunnel, or
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff out there for accessibility in terms of like keyboards.
Yeah,
and
in fact,
mice.
we can do. Oh, I still have caps lock on. That's another thing. When you're typing in passwords for anything, make sure you don't have caps lock on unless your password is all capital letters. And you can tell if caps lock is on. I'm going to show you real quick. Thank you for reminding me, Rebecca. I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to share my screen this again. So if you have caps lock on, you see this little button up here? That little light means that I have caps lock on. This is off, this is on. So I do want you to check that when you're typing in passwords and things. If it tells you your password is wrong, it might be because you have caps lock on. And the caps lock key is all the way over here. So if you hit, the light's not over here. Sometimes on some keyboards, caps lock, the light will be right on the key and it'll be green too. Just keep that in mind. And then I was gonna, Rebecca, I was gonna jump to my internet here and share that. Can you see that screen now? Okay, and we can do.
Yes.
I'm gonna put like gaming in there just so you guys can see all the different kinds of. So you can see these gaming mice are contoured for people who are spending hours and hours on these hours and hours on their computers, and then.
I guess like ergonomic is a good way to say it.
Yes. Yeah. So then for people who have arthritis, there's, this mouse here that looks a little different because it's vertical. So then you're holding your hand up like this instead of down like this in case you have arthritic wrists. So yeah, there's lots, Rebecca's right. That's a great point. There are lots of different mice out there for adaptability too. Yeah. Same with keyboards actually. Let me do gaming keyboard. So you have your gaming keyboards are kind of fun. I can't see the one that I had before that was raised, but they've got some examples of some ones that light up and change colors and are kind of fancy. So okay, yeah, excellent point. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, that's a great point. And if you find that you're struggling with that too, like I said, they have they even have mouse pads that have a wrist rest on them too that you can get, so that you can rest your wrist on more cushion if you need it. Yeah, that's a great point. Did you have more to add, Rebecca, about that?
I don't think I do. I think that was my main, because I was actually thinking about getting a mouse like that for myself for work. The one that like goes sideways instead of top, like top down. I don't know how to say that, but
yes,
yeah, I was thinking about
vertical
getting
mouse.
one. Yes.
Yeah, a vertical mouse. I've also seen mice where there's actually, it's a trackball. So instead of, I'm like trying to show you
Yeah, I've
hands.
seen those
So
before
instead
too.
of a mouse like, this, instead of a mouse like this, there's just a big ball here. And the ball basically works more like a touchpad on a laptop, where you just move it with the one finger. So then the mouse itself can stay in one place, and you just move it around the screen with it like that. So yeah, so there's a lot of different adaptability things out there for ergonomics, like you said. Yeah.
Looks like we have a hand raised. Let me allow.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you have your question, go ahead.
You can also type it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, feel free to type it if that works.
Or you can speak it out loud if you want.
I think it was maybe just a mistaken hand raise. That's okay. We're just practicing our mice skills.
And if not, yes. And that's another thing too. Yeah, if everybody wants to practice their mouse skills right now, and y'all want to raise your hand, go for it. That should be a one left click. I'll raise your hand. You can also practice by moving your chat. So if you tap on chat and you pull up your chat, and then you can move it again by holding your mouse down, and then you can drag or drop it or move it around if you want. So, and then yeah. So those are two tips right within Zoom that you can do to practice.
Yes. I like your idea of the solitaire. I never thought about the solitaire being a good option.
Yeah, so solitaire is great. A lot of other games, Minesweeper is one I used to play a lot when I was younger, because it was already installed on Windows, and it was a lot of click. You'd click and click and move to like find the mines or whatever. So that was one I played a lot. All of that kind of stuff builds that dexterity too. There are some games out there that are designed to help teach you home row that are more gamified or use gamification. I don't have any specifically, but you can find them at places like the different stores that sell different software, and they make it more like a game. So that can sometimes help too.
It makes it easier and more fun than just sitting there typing in letters or something.
Yeah. And we will cover things further on in the season. We'll cover things like how to format documents in Word, after you've typed it up, how to make it look nice, and how to add things to it. That'll be in December. So if you practice your typing skills now, you can type everything up, and then you can learn all about that stuff too. So we try to have them kind of build off of each other. So
cool. Yep.
All right. Other questions? No? Okay. Well, then I hope if you haven't registered for next week, I hope that you'll consider registering for next week. That is our Windows computer class, and Rebecca's going to be teaching that. It's basically an intro to Windows 10. So if you don't have a Windows 10 computer, you can still come and join us, and you can learn a little bit about Windows 10. Most computers, if you bought a new computer today, the likelihood is it will come with Windows 10. Most of them at the store, they're all Windows 10 now. So if you have a Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, those are all great, and we can show you what the modifications are for those too, but Windows 10 is kind of the most current, the most current version right now. So okay.
That's what we have on all the computers, I believe, at the library too.
We do, yes. We do. So, all right. Other questions? Anything else? Okay, well, I'm going to try to keep it to just around an hour today. So we'll go ahead and say goodbye and thank everyone for coming today. And thank you, Rebecca, for hosting for me.
Yes,
and that was an excellent additional point about for adaptable mice and keyboards.
Yes.
So great.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you,
Well,
everybody.
thank you everyone for coming.
Have a good day.